Hey guys, it's Leah, welcome back, or welcome if you are new, and happy Valentine's Day week. Today we are reading the most popular romantasy book. I knew this year that I wanted to do 1 or 2 videos to mark Valentine's Day and also to use it as the perfect excuse to read romance books and romantasy books. We all know how much of a big fantasy mood I'm currently in. I actually think this is probably the biggest fantasy mood that I've ever had in my entire reading career. So I thought, what better way to mark Valentine's Day than to read some of the most popular romantasy and fantasy books. This is the first video out of 2 for Valentine's Day. The next video that I'm uploading is another Valentine's themed vlog, which I love so much and I'm really excited for you guys to see. I feel like there were so many possibilities with what romantasy books I could have read for this video. I did also put a story up on my Instagram asking what you guys thought the most popular ones were, and you guys did not come to play. You gave me so many good recommendations, so thank you so much, because any of the ones that I didn't read here I'm definitely adding to my TBR. I ultimately decided on 3, 2 of which were on my physical TBR, 1 wasn't, and at the time of filming this I have read all of them. The books that we're going to be reading in this video is Sparkle the Everflame by Pen Cole, Phantasma by Kaylee Smith, and Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I fear I did kind of have some strong opinions on these, so let's get on with the vlog. Good morning guys, I have now officially started the first book for this video. Obviously we are reading the most popular fantasy romances, romantasy books, and one that I feel like everyone was talking about at some point last year and a lot of people really loved, but I have simultaneously seen some mixed things, was Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. So this is the first one that I have started and I'm scared to speak about it. I saw this absolutely everywhere last year. I mean, the cover is quite unique and it is quite striking and so many people absolutely adored it, especially I feel like on TikTok it was just absolutely everywhere. And it does say it's a dark fantasy romance. It's not new here, obviously. You know that I'm really getting into fantasy at the minute and a lot of fantasy romances I'm absolutely adoring, but I've never read a dark romance, and I've especially never read a dark fantasy romance. Going into this I really didn't know what to expect and I actually didn't really know anything about the book at all, and then I read the synopsis. One of my favourite things in a fantasy book are trials or like a tournament setting. I absolutely adore it. It just makes the stakes so high and I always have so much fun with them, especially when a romance is thrown into it. I just absolutely adore it. Like The Serpent at the Wings of Night, that was one of the biggest reasons I absolutely adored that book, and this one does have that, and it also has like a haunted house vibe, and I love haunted houses. I love sentient houses. This for me, when I read the synopsis I was like, oh my god, this sounds like my perfect fantasy book. It didn't last long. I am actually reading this on my Kindle because it is on Kindle Unlimited and I started it in bed yesterday. I am now 32% of the way through and I've got 4 hours 18 minutes left. So I'm 140 pages in and the book is 412 pages long. So I am quite a way through now and I'm really adoring the setting. I think the way that this is written and the sort of occult and the witchiness and the phantoms and all of the ghosts and the gothic vibes and the estate, perfect. When I read that in the synopsis, that is exactly what I was envisioning and that is exactly what I'm loving, and the setting is definitely carrying it for me. We are basically following our protagonist, who is a necromancer, and at the very start of the book her mum passes away. It then just leaves her and her sister, and her family has a lot of debts that kind of need to be paid off, especially to do with their home, and it's causing friction between her and her sister. But Phantasma is this gothic estate where these tournaments basically take place. It's essentially that trope where a tournament takes place, only one person can survive if not everyone else dies, but there's demons and there's devils and there's ghouls and there's like blood bargains. So it is really, really interesting. Our protagonist basically finds this letter from her sister and she's trying to find her sister and she assumes that she's gone into the game. Thus our protagonist also finds herself into Phantasma, and like I said, it's really, really interesting. I don't know where it's heading. I think my main hesitation with it currently is either the writing or I just don't like the way that our protagonist and the romance is starting to be written. Essentially our love interest was introduced and I kid you not, she met him for like not even a single day and then she was having all of these thoughts and all of these things, and I'm like, babe, your mum died 5 days ago, please touch grass. There is a lot to consider because I feel like one of my biggest pet peeves, especially in fantasy that I read when I was growing up, is that I feel like a lot of our protagonists lose parents or their parents die and we are never ever told about their grief or told about their hardships and all the natural things that happen to you when you lose a parent. Like, it's one of my biggest pet peeves in the world, and I'm like, babe, I'm finding myself to be really conflicted because yeah, I suppose it isn't that deep and I'm reading this for a fun time, and that is exactly what it is giving me. Like, even if I am cringing even the smallest bit at some of the quotes that are being interchanged between these love interests, like, I'm having fun with it. I'm still laughing. So yeah, those are all of my thoughts so far. I'm really just loving the atmosphere more than anything. I'm loving this tournament sort of setting in a gothic estate with like the occult and the witchiness and the demons and the devils and the ghosts and the ghouls and the phantoms and all of that. I'm finding that so incredibly interesting. I am also flying through it, so my main goal is to read a lot of this today, which I'm completely expecting to. I'm not gonna lie, after after filming this, I'm probably just going to curl up with my Kindle and read it. I am having a good time with it and I am excited to carry on reading. So I will give you another update once I've read a little bit more. Hi guys, it's now the next day and I wanted so bad to finish Phantasma last night, and I think I would have done, but I just wanted to come on and give you one final update before I do. I don't know exactly how many pages I read yesterday. I will pop it on the screen because I am filming a TikTok where I kind of document how many pages that I read in a week. But I'm now on page 371 and I'm 83% of the way through and I have just under an hour left. Before I go into more of what I'm currently feeling, am I having a fun time with this? Yeah, like I'm having the absolute time of my life, and all of my previous points still absolutely stand true, especially to do with the atmosphere. I feel like this concept is a 10 out of 10 concept, the concept I'm obsessed with. But for me currently, I think it's the writing that I can't 100% get on board with. I've said it so many times before, but when it comes to certain books, or really any book to be honest, but I notice it less with others, writing is the number one thing that I notice and is the number one thing that I take away from a book. I know that is incredibly subjective, and obviously reading is so different for everyone. Some people might prefer and look for better plots or characters or atmosphere, but for me it's definitely writing. And like I said, with certain books I can definitely notice it less, and some books I just really don't care, like if I'm there to have a fun time, which for this one I definitely am, but there are certain scenes and certain quotes that I can't stop cringing over. Even in terms of the plot slightly, I wish certain things were focused on more than solely just the romance, because I feel like we spent so much time focusing and building this romance. Even though it was so incredibly insta-lovey, we are very much hyper-fixating on that. And I know obviously it's a romantasy and that's the whole point of this video, is to read romantasies, but I do feel like sometimes you obviously need to strike that balance between the fantasy element and then the romance element, and I feel like this one's definitely hyper-fixating on the romance a little bit more. Also slightly finding our main character so annoying. There was one specific scene that I am going to talk about, so I'm going to go into spoilers briefly. If you haven't read this book or you just don't want to hear the spoilers, skip to this time frame on screen. Whilst I give people time to do that, I'm just going to take a sip on my water. One of the last scenes that I read last night, which is definitely an example of how I wish the plot was expanded a little bit more, or maybe it is just the writing. Obviously Ophelia initially goes into Phantasma at the beginning of the book because she thinks her sister Genevieve is in there and she wants to make sure her sister is safe and like find what she is up to. And we've spent so much of the book trying to figure out what is happening with her sister, trying to see and notice where she is, and we just kind of didn't really know anything. And then I shit you not, why is it the moment that Ophelia and Blackwell are getting it on that Genevieve just randomly knocks on the door? It felt so extremely anticlimactic, but that wasn't even my problem. I was like, okay, sure, like we spent the entire story and the entire book figuring out where her sister is, and what her sister just randomly knocks on her door. It was after that when Genevieve and Ophelia were having a conversation, and Ophelia was telling Genevieve that I just saw our dead mum and we had a conversation, I told her everything that is going on here. Obviously Ophelia is learning a lot about her parents and her own magical powers, and a lot is being uncovered, and she's talking to Genevieve about it, and she literally tells her sister that whilst I was talking to our newly deceased by the way mum, which I've already spoken about, she wanted me to let you know that she loves you so much. And Genevieve's response, she literally sits there and she essentially goes, okay, we'll talk about this more later, for now I want to know about you this ghost. Babe, your mum is dead and she just tried to tell you that she loves you so much, but you would rather know about your sister's sex life. I was actually baffled. I think it's just certain scenes like that that I'm like, okay, this would just not happen. Like, I know obviously this is a fantasy book and it's a romantasy book setting like a haunted house with like ghosts and phantoms and devils, and obviously it's not real. But I just think in terms of some of the dialogue, it's so unrealistic, and I feel like a lot has been thrown in just to have tropes or just to have a reaction from readers, which is obviously absolutely fine. And this is probably an unpopular opinion because I know that this book was so incredibly popular last year, but some of the dialogue I just have to laugh at. Like, I am having a really good time with this, but that was an example of the dialogue just not really being for me. But yeah, like I said, I'm about 83% of the way through, so I am literally just gonna now sit here. I'm gonna make a cup of tea and I'm gonna sit here and read it and finish it. I moved to the other side of my desk because the flashback from the window was not doing it for me. I just read what I'm assuming is what people were talking about. I kind of knew it, I'm not gonna lie. I was expecting something in that sort of direction, or something to do with something else. I love having to speak in code just in case anybody hasn't read it, but yeah, I saw that coming, I think. I'm intrigued to see how the rest of the book is now gonna unfold, so I'm gonna carry on reading. I just realised this entire time that I think the camera was so overexposed, so I'm really sorry about that. I have 30 minutes left of the book, but I'm on the epilogue. Unless this is the longest epilogue that I've ever read in my entire life, I am about to finish it, so I decided to whack the camera on again. I don't know how I'm feeling about this. Oh, wait, that was the end? Oh my god, okay, so the last 26 minutes is a sort of sneak peek into the next book and the sequel. Do you know what? I actually had the time of my life reading that. I had so much fun reading it. I definitely read it fairly quickly and I love the atmosphere so much. I'm also intrigued to read the second book, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait and see for a couple of reviews from different readers and see what the general consensus of that book is before picking it up. I don't know what to rate it. I really liked certain parts of this. I've already touched upon all of the bits that I did like, and I also really liked that there was OCD representation. I feel like I don't really see a lot of OCD representation, or the fantasy books I've read especially definitely don't have any sort of representation like that, so that was really good to see in there. I always think it's really special when a book that completely blows up and everyone is obsessed with has representation. It actually fills me with so much joy, so I really liked that that was in there. I've also touched upon the things that I didn't like so much. In terms of the ending, I did sort of see that thing coming, but I do feel like it was resolved really quickly. However, I think I'm probably going to rate it 3 stars at the minute, probably like a 3.25 if I were to be picky. The concept and the atmosphere and the occult haunted trial vibe was definitely my favourite part, but the writing definitely let it down slightly for me in my personal opinion. I can see why this was so incredibly popular. I feel like this is the perfect formula whilst also still remaining quite unique in terms of fantasy and romantasy, so I really enjoyed it, but wasn't the best thing that I've ever read. That was the first romantasy book for this video. Next I'm gonna go on to Spark of the Everflame. This is a book that's not only on my February TBR but is one that I've been very excited about, but I simultaneously know absolutely nothing about it, so I'm gonna start it now, or maybe in about half an hour. I think I'm gonna make some lunch and we can get into Spark of the Everflame and hopefully I will really enjoy this one. Hi guys, it's now the next day and last night I started Spark of the Everflame. I could have binge read so much more of this last night if I wanted to. I think I started it at about 11:30, and if I had started it any earlier I definitely would have got a lot further through. I had no preconceptions going into this. I actually didn't really know anything about the plot at all. I just knew that so many people loved it and I'd seen Emmy talk about it all of the time, and I really do trust Emmy's romance recommendations now. I hadn't even read the synopsis because I really do love going into books knowing as little as possible, but sometimes with fantasy books, like, it feels like reading the first 100 pages of a fantasy book is an Olympic sport. So sometimes if I'm getting slightly confused, I'll obviously go back and then read the synopsis, but I hadn't with this and I just went into it with no expectations. I'm really enjoying it. I'm finding our protagonist so witty and so strong and so hilarious, and I'm just loving her character so much, which is not how I felt in Phantasma, and I love when I become obsessed with a female main character in a fantasy book because it just feels so much more enjoyable to read, and I love seeing development and I love seeing growth. But in Spark of the Everflame we are essentially following a world that has both mortals and the Descended. The world has kind of been colonized by the gods, and the Descended are essentially the offspring of the gods, for example, but they all have like different coloured eyes. They are quite obvious. They are strikingly beautiful and handsome, and one of the physical differences is that all of the mortals have brown eyes, but our protagonist doesn't have brown eyes. She has grey eyes. We are absolutely being led to believe that it's because of a sickness and a childhood sickness that she had when she was younger, and she has to take this like powder, this medicine for it. But she is also a healer and her mum is a healer, and pretty much her mum just goes missing at the very start of the book, and now we are following her trying to figure out what happened. I just pulled up the synopsis on Kindle and it says that this is a 4-book epic fantasy romance series. I fully thought that this was just a trilogy. Why do I already feel like I want to just binge read all of the books back to back? If I carry on liking the book exactly how I am now, I know I'm going to want to binge read the second book anyway, and then no doubt the third and the fourth, because I'm having the time of my life. But it says that it follows feisty heroine DM Ballator in her fight against depression, her struggle to survive in a royal palace full of intrigue, and her journey of self-discovery and finding true love. The enemies to lovers romantasy features a unique magic system, dragon-like mythical creatures. I did not know that. Hilarious banter, mysteries that will leave you theorising for weeks, and a true slow, and then in brackets, slow burn. It's also been pitched as for fans of The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which we know I love Carissa Broadbent. I'm just really enjoying it, and I'm so excited to carry on reading. Like I said, I'm only 35% of the way through. I definitely want to read a ton more of it today. I feel like I'm utterly gonna fly through this one like Phantasma. I'm just really liking it. So yeah, I wanted to give you an update before I just carry on reading, because who knows how much I'm gonna read. I might read 100 pages, I might read 200 pages. I just need to carry on reading it because I cannot get it out of my brain today. Yeah, it's currently 10 to 2, so I think I'm gonna just sit here maybe for about half an hour and read the book, and then do a bit of editing and then read some more, and I'll just update you when I have some more thoughts. Hi guys, please ignore the stripped bed sheets behind me. I am currently washing my bedding, but I wanted to give a quick update on Spark of the Everflame. Also ignore the dressing gown, it is so cold today, but I've only read a little bit more. I think I'm now 45% of the way through and I am enjoying this so much. I think it's such a breath of fresh air because in Phantasma, I felt like the romance was the driving force. I felt like it was the main thing happening in the book and that the author was really writing about, but in this, it somewhat feels the opposite. Obviously, because this is a romancy and I think there's 4 books, I suppose there's time for the romance to build. I am really enjoying that currently, even just 45% of the way in, the tension surrounding the romance is still really rich and really there, and it's not insta-lovey at all. Also really loving the political intrigue. I feel like the world building in this is superb. Like, we are learning so much about this world, so much about the magic system, all whilst it's still remaining really fresh and really exciting and not really dumping it on you. Like, I feel like the pacing of this is perfect. I don't know, I'm just really enjoying it, and I do feel like I'm absolutely gonna want to binge read. I feel like I may have said that in the last update. I just feel like I'm gonna want to binge read the series and I'm so happy about it. I am going to the cinema tonight. I'm gonna leave in like an hour or 2, so I'm probably not gonna get as much reading done as I hoped, but I feel like I'm gonna want to read a lot more when I'm home, and maybe then I'll try and finish it. I think I've only got 3 hours left, so definitely doable, but yeah, I'm just so obsessed with it. Like, genuinely, this video is making me so happy. There is something about finding a new romantasy or fantasy series right now, especially because I'm just so in love with fantasy currently, that is filling me with so much joy, and I feel like this could definitely be one of them. So I'm probably gonna leave. I am gonna bring my Kindle with me just to get a little bit of reading in, and then I'll update you when I have more thoughts. Good morning guys, it's been a couple of days since I last updated you about Spark of the Everflame, solely because I was filming a different video in between this, so I had to take a little bit of a break from reading it, and when I tell you that was one hell of a task. I was enjoying it so much that I didn't want any other book to interrupt it. I just didn't want anyone to interrupt me, period, when reading it, but I did have to take a little bit of a break, but I have since finished it. I really enjoyed this. I will say, throughout the entirety of the book, I had a certain suspicion on one particular thing. I do feel like from the start of the book there were things that were very heavily insinuated, and I mean, if you can read context clues, like, it was quite obvious what was going on. So unfortunately, when it came to the ending, I wasn't really surprised in any way, shape or form. I was really expecting what happened, but that's not to say that I'm not excited to carry on with the series. I still have so many answers, and the blurb, nor people who were saying that this was incredibly slow burn, they were not lying. This is probably one of the most slow burn fantasy books that I've read, and knowing there are 3 other books out there makes me so incredibly excited for all of these answers and just to have so much fun reading them again. I don't know when I'm gonna get to the second one. I feel like I'm gonna want to try and fit it into a different video very soon. I would just want to binge read it, honestly. Since finishing it last night too, I saw a few reviews because I did go on to Goodreads, and a lot of people are saying that one of their main grapples with this book was the main character. I know at the start of the vlog I think I said that I was really enjoying our female protagonist, and that definitely for the most part remained true. I think she was really witty. I think in many places she was so hilarious. She's so headstrong, but simultaneously is the perfect portrayal of not really knowing what you want to do with your life and trying to follow your own path, and I really enjoyed that. What I didn't really enjoy as much, which also seems like quite a few other people agree with that, is just certain decisions that she would make I feel like were so different for her character or completely went against her morals that she was like talking about maybe a chapter prior, and they were just a bit random. Made it look like she was just making stupid decisions, which definitely annoyed me slightly, but that again is not to say that it deterred my enjoyment from the book at all, because it really didn't. Really had a fun time with this. Like I said, I'm really excited to carry on with the series. I think I'm gonna rate the first book maybe a 4-star, which is incredibly solid, and I'm so excited to carry on. So that was Spark of the Everflame, and now I'm gonna read the last book for this video. I have already started it, but I am mainly listening to the audiobook at the minute. It is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I read Divine Rivals, I want to say just a few months after all of the hype, and I really loved it. It was the epitome of the Great War by Taylor Swift, and that was a proper era in my life, and I was completely and utterly in love with it. I love academic rivals to lovers. This is a YA fantasy, it's a duology, and this is the second book, and I still have not gotten to it. I put this off for a really long time for multiple different reasons, and I feel like every time I just look at it on my shelf, I'm like, okay, I'm either gonna have to read you now or I'm not gonna read you for another year. I thought it would be quite good to end this video with me simultaneously ending a duology or a series that I'm currently reading. So yeah, I'm currently listening to the audiobook of this, and I'm currently 40% of the way through, so I am really enjoying this. Initially going into it, I was really not apprehensive. I had heard a couple of mixed reviews about this book in comparison to the first one, and I was really nervous that I wasn't gonna like it as much. I think off of the back of the first one, I'm obviously not gonna give any spoilers for this like I hadn't the other ones. I was really intrigued to see how this was gonna start, where the characters were gonna develop, and how also the series is gonna kind of end. Obviously I don't know yet, I'm only 40% of the way through. First half was definitely gripping. It did take me a minute to kind of resituate myself in this world and with these characters. The end of the first book broke my heart, and the first 25% of this I literally I think put on Goodreads like Rebecca Ross, you are sick. It was so painful to read. It definitely has this one particular trope that I always find so much fun in reading, but equally like it's one of the most painful tropes in any fantasy that I've ever read ever. I'm not going to say what it is, again spoilers. I sat there listening to the audiobook in the first 25% of the book, babe. Oh my god, so hard to read. Like when you love these characters so much, Rebecca Ross. Like I said, I'm really enjoying it. I feel like I haven't listened to a good audiobook, or especially a good fantasy audiobook, in a really long time, and it's quite a breath of fresh air. So I'm gonna hope to finish this today. I do have a few errands that I would like to do. I would also love to do some colouring. I used to always colour in my vlogs. So I was listening to an audiobook at the end of last year, and I haven't done it for a really long time. I also want to work on a bit of my reading journal, which you will see more in a different vlog coming up soon, but maybe I could also do that whilst listening to the audiobook. I'm definitely gonna try and finish this today, and we'll see what I think. Hi guys, as you would have seen, I did a bit of colouring, I did some errands whilst listening to the audiobook of Ruthless Vows, and I have now finished it. Do you know what? Considering so many people said that this wasn't as good as the first one, I really enjoyed it. I think it was a really satisfying ending to this duology. I will say I definitely preferred the first one. I think I'm gonna rate this one maybe like a 3.5 star. Personally, the second half of the book was a lot stronger for me. I don't know why. I think the first half of the book was so painful in so many ways. Simultaneously, it did kind of feel like things were kind of being stretched out, and the pacing felt a little bit off, but equally I may have felt like that because it's been so long since I read the first one. I feel like if I had read them back to back, obviously I read that one before this one was even published, and I waited so long to finally get to this. But like if I had read them back to back, I probably would have enjoyed this a lot more, but I still really liked it, and I'm so happy that I've now finished the duology. I think it was last week that Rebecca Ross announced, is it a prequel for this duology? I'm really intrigued by that. I definitely think I will be reading it because I really do like her writing style. I love the way that she writes tension for the young adult genre. I feel like if I had read these, or if these were published when I was a teenager, I would have loved them even more than I do as an adult. There is just something about her writing that feels quite whimsical and so magical that I really love and I really appreciate. So I'm really intrigued for that prequel. I can't remember when it comes out, but I will be reading it. I am so happy that I finally finished this. I really liked it. I don't really want to elaborate just because this is the sequel, and for anybody who hasn't read the first book, I would highly recommend this duology. It's so fun. It's equally quite heartbreaking, but in the best way. The stakes are quite high, and I'm not gonna lie, there are going to be times that you are going to want to throw the book at the wall, but do you know what? Sometimes that's fun when you're reading. But yeah, 3.5 stars. Like I said, it's definitely not as good as the first one in my opinion. I would have loved to see a lot more in this, but I'm really happy with how the duology ended. I really love these characters, and I'm happy that I finished another series. A little side note, one of my favourite videos to watch from booktubers at the minute is them finishing or trying to finish like every series that they're in the middle of, and I love them so much. And I finally made a spreadsheet of all of the book series that I'm currently in the middle of. I am probably going to show you guys in a different vlog coming up, but I really want to start that series too because I feel like it would be really fun. I feel like especially now that I'm finding myself gravitate more towards series and a lot of fantasy series, I feel like it's going to be quite fun to kind of narrow that down because I feel like it's going to get out of hand very quick. So if that is something you're interested in seeing, definitely let me know. But with that, I am going to end the video here. Thank you so much for following along with me as I read some of the most popular fantasy romantasy books. If you have any good other popular or just underrated, any sort of romantasy or fantasy, please give me the recommendations. I'm always looking for more at the minute. This was so fun. I loved reading from all of these characters, all of the couples, the tension, the love. Oh my god, for Valentine's Day it's perfect. Like I said at the very start of the vlog, there is one more Valentine's Day video coming on Sunday at the time that you're seeing this. I'm really excited for you guys to see it because I love that video. If you have read any of the books that I read in this video, please feel free to let me know what you thought about them, whether you like them or you dislike them. Equally, if you did watch until the very end of the video and you don't know what to comment any like fantasy-esque emoji. As always, all of my socials are linked down in the description box below. We have my Patreon, my Instagram, my TikTok, my Goodreads where I post reviews for every single book I read, and so much more. And yeah guys, as always, thank you so much for being here and for spending some time with me. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you again very soon with another video.